Michael, what's been the reception of this book so far, and what's in it?
Well, I was telling my friend Saul Landau that we're doing a visionary book, a book about how things might be if we imagine socialism. The prophets from Isaiah to Jesus thought about ideas in our book. I said, you know, Saul, it's when the lion lays down with the lamb. Saul said, when the lion lays down with the lamb's not going to get any sleep. The reception's been pretty good. Alice Walker wrote saying, this is the book a lot of us have been waiting for. Your timing was exquisite. And I'll say so. I was on Fox Radio 2 days ago. And the interviewer actually invited me to come back. A recent Pew poll showed that 49% of young people under the age of 30 had a favorable reaction to the word socialism. It was even higher amongst people of color. Merriam-Webster has an online dictionary. The two words that hit the most hits last year were socialism and capitalism. Kwame Savant, a young woman, ran for city council in Seattle. She beat a longtime Democrat. She had 100,000 votes. She had a huge amount of community and union support. Things are changing. I read yesterday that the socialist organization that she's in is teaming up with the International Socialist Organization and Solidarity to run a socialist campaign in Chicago. So this book is a contribution to that kind of energy and movement. The book is structured as follows. I'm going to go over it briefly so you know what we tried to do. The first part of the book is an indictment of capitalism. Capitalism promises democracy and it promises a better way of life for everybody. It's failed in both respects. Democracy, Citizens United decision, where corporations are now people to give as much money as they want to the two capitalist parties. I'll believe a corporation is a person the day it gets a colonoscopy. Democracy, the NSA, my friend and comrade and contributor to this book, Michael Wagner, just wrote a good article about the NSA. The NSA knows every tweet, every keystroke on your computer, every phone call you make, right? Even ex-President Jimmy Carter, who heard about this, said, we no longer have a functioning democracy. What about guaranteeing a decent way of life for everybody? Real wages haven't gone up in 40 years. Inequality is ridiculous. The Walton family from Walmart's, the 5 kids and the daughter-in-law are worth $69.8 billion. That's more than an entire 30% of the bottom of this population. Wages? We got to fight to increase the minimum wage to $7.50. And the guy that runs Chase Manhattan Bank, Jamie Dimon, just got a bonus of $20 million. The guy makes $80,000 a day. Yeah, just for fancy sake, for putting the economy in the hole. They were discussing whether or not they should give the bonus on the committee at Chase. And they thought, well, we don't want to alienate people by giving them all this money. On the other hand, we don't want to alienate him by not rewarding him. Why do they want to reward him? Because he called up Eric Holder. And he got Holder to agree not to prosecute Chase criminally, just to pay a fine. That was his service. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the chapters in the book. The second part of the book, the meat of the book, is the imagine part. As my friend Ramsey Clark says, if you don't have hope, you don't do anything. And this part of the book is hope. I'm going to give you an idea of some of the articles written by not the people on the panel, but some of the people in the audience, or people who couldn't make it, like Mumia Abu-Jamal and Angela Davis, who wrote an article on alternatives to the criminal justice system. Leslie Kagan and Melanie K. Kantrowitz wrote on how queer life might be different. under socialism. Juan Gonzalez wrote on the vanguard role of immigrants in this country. William Ayers wrote on teaching freedom. Dave Lindorf on socialized medicine. Tom Angotti on the right to housing. Arun Gupta on creating a sustainable food system. I wrote an article on civil law. Michael Ratner wrote an article about what he would do if he was the Attorney General. He sat around saying, "You won't be in hell if you point somebody with my politics as Attorney General." But I would answer that to say that with climate change, Michael, hell is warming over. Steve Wishniak, who did a wonderful job editing this book, wrote an article on drugs in a society where people care about each other. Matt Callahan wrote on imagining art after capitalism. Larry Fraud and Tess Rod Wolf wrote on personal, emotional, and sexual life without capitalism. Michael Zweig wrote on the working class as the majority. Renee Breidenthal wrote on the women's workday. Martine Esplanado wrote a beautiful poem. Terry Bisson wrote a very fine short story looking back from 2077. And last and most importantly, Joe Covell wrote on eco-socialism. He has the first piece of the book and the last piece of the book. Because if we don't solve that problem, and we can't do it under capitalism, if we don't solve that problem, we are doomed. The last part of the book, are 10 pieces on how we get to where we are to where we want to be, how we make social transformation. Michael Moore wrote about a Bill of Rights. The first Bill of Rights had to do with political freedom, the First Amendment, Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth, and so on. The new Bill of Rights would guarantee housing, employment, food, education, and be treated decently when you're an older person. He writes about that. Paul LeBlanc, the historian, wrote about the Third American Revolution. The first, of course, was the struggle for independence from England. The second was giving at least formal rights to the enslaved black population of this country. The third American Revolution will be a revolution for economic and democratic rights, so the population of this country runs the resources of this country. And without, Paul says, without a majority of people participating in this and bringing it about, socialism will come to naught. Now, it's no accident that most of this book, with only a couple of exceptions, Kazendi being one, most of this book is written by people my age, veterans of the 60s, people who were in the civil rights movement, in the movement against the war in Vietnam, in the women's rights movement, the gay movement. Why? Because, you know, the history of social struggle and progress since the time of Jesus, since the time of the prophets, has been a history of hills and valleys. The 60s was a hill. We're coming up to another hill. And these people have had experience that they've contributed to this book and made it a very wise book. So I want to end with this thought. Pick the book up, read it, and use the wisdom, and make the most of it.